Maine is pretty famous for blueberries. A lot of research takes place at the university to learn more about them. How would you describe a blueberry?
Well, I describe them, they're fruit, they're blue, and they're very juicy.
Well, Dan Bell just got his PhD at the university, and he studies blueberry genetics. Some scientists can have a kind of complicated way of speaking. Let's see if we can understand what Dan's trying to say.
Lowbush blueberry is considered a prostrate shrub, and it grows horizontally under the ground. The stems, or the ramets, technically, are all genetically the same in this one individual. We call it a genotype.
Your genes, which are inside each of your cells, will also tell you things like
your size, the shape of your nose.
Right, or for blueberries, how many fruits they produce on a stem. A farmer this year told me that his ramets, the stem of the blueberry, had 13 flowers on it, which is a lot for a blueberry plant. And he was really excited because he thought that each one of those flowers would turn into...
Blueberry.
Yeah. And how many fruits would he get?
13.
That's what he thought. But it turns out that that's not true. Even though these are all pollinated.
Doesn't mean they're all gonna become a fruit.
So it's unpredictable. Dan wanted to find out, well, how do you get it so that this one makes 13 fruits every time?
It depends, doesn't it depend on the pollination?
It does. So what he does is he takes the pollen out of the flower. He uses a tuning fork. Why do you think he uses a tuning fork?
I don't know.
Have you ever heard a bee buzzing?
Yeah. Zzz.
Yeah.
It vibrates.
So now why do you think he uses it?
To shake off so it wouldn't just stick there.
We use the tuning forks because they're at about the same frequency at which a bumblebee will beat its wings when it goes near the flowers, so pollen will kind of shake out and then land on the bee, and then the bee will take it with it.
In order to make seeds, the plant needs to get pollen from other plants.
Right.
Some plants don't need pollen from another plant. They can fertilize themselves, and Dan calls those good selfers.
What we found was that knowing the cell fertility on the x-axis is a good predictor of the general outcross yield of that clone.
So the plants that aren't good selfers need a bee to come
And fertilize that. Sprinkle, 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 sprinkle.
just like that. So Dan found that if a blueberry plant that produces very few fruits receives pollen from another that produces a lot of fruit, then it'll start producing a lot of fruit too. So really, plant genetics and pollination are just ways to think about how our food is made, because a lot of our food comes from fruits. All right, so Dan and his crew also look at how different individual blueberry plants are related to each other.
Right.
You know how you share genes with your mom and your dad?
Yeah.
Blueberries kind of have parents too. And Dan and his crew study that using electrophoresis and gels.
Okay.
And you put the DNA into this gel, and you add electricity, and the electricity pulls out...
The DNA.
Yeah, or the genes.
Right. And transfer it sort of to a computer.
Yeah, and then you can take a picture of it. So, then you can see what kind of genes they have.
Right.
And then you can compare them to see which ones might be related. Do you think a blueberry plant would have a daughter plant growing right next to it? Well, think about the seeds. They
fall off, and then it takes a couple of days for them to go into the ground by themselves.
Yeah, but these blueberries, the way that they're growing underground, they have really thick roots. And so if a blueberry drops a seed on the ground, the seeds can't even get through because...
So it blocks the seed from having its roots go down.
Right.
We basically found that clones across this field, for example, are randomly related.
Then you have fields of scattered families. So let's say a plant over here has a family member all the way over on the opposite side of the field. How did they get their seeds there?
The roots? No, the roots move the...
Someone from the same...
Oh, animals. They poop out the seeds.
You got it. Right? So animals like what?
Deer,
What else?
rabbit,
Rabbits.
chipmunk, birds.
Basically, out about 12.5 kilometers, the fields do differentiate and clones become less related. It agrees with what we see as the distances that birds, migratory robins, and bears may travel.
So that's just a little of how Dr. Dan Bell is trying to better understand blueberries.
If there's like another pink patch over there, how do you think it gets like 5 or 2 miles away? Think of different animals that would eat the blueberries. Bears, right? Yep. Like birds, bears, the birds, the mice, the bears, the
Yes.
Yup.